The early 2000s saw the return of Star Trek to its original roots. We're going back before Kirk, just after First Contact, sometime kind of west of Croydon. Star Trek Enterprise is interesting for so many reasons, including what went into making it happen. I'm Sean Ferrick for Trek Culture, and here are 10 amazing behind-the-scenes secrets of Star Trek Enterprise. Number 10. The reason for the title change. Enterprise received a lot of attention when the first episode, Broken Bow, aired on UPN, but the viewership slowly declined to around 2.5 million per episode. After the first couple of seasons, the writers began trying to find creative ways to save the show. One theory for the show's declining viewership was the lack of Star Trek in the title. When the series began, it was simply titled Enterprise, a first for the franchise and also a strange and risky decision. Many on the production team believed that people weren't watching because they didn't know the show was about Star Trek, though you'd think the word Enterprise would give it away. The third episode of the show's third season, Extinction, was the first to use the new title Star Trek Enterprise, and while seasons 3 and 4 were received better by fans, the name change sadly wasn't enough to save the show from cancellation. Number 9. Braga likes cheesy things. Enterprise was the first Star Trek show to have lyrics in its opening theme, unless you count Gene Roddenberry's secret lyrics for the original series theme, which he wrote in order to collect royalties from it. The Enterprise theme, Where My Heart Will Take Me, performed by Russell Watson and written by Diane Warren, has become a huge meme in the Star Trek community. A vocal segment of the fanbase, including Simon Pegg, absolutely hates it because of how starry-eyed, dramatic and soft rock it is. But isn't that what Star Trek is all about? Besides the soft rock part. Still, many others will sing along any time they hear those opening lines. It's been a long road, getting from there to here. The song is undeniably cheesy. Brannon Braga, one of the show's creators, even agreed, saying in Star Trek Magazine, Volume 3, Issue 2, "I think the song is cheesy, but I like cheesy things. We wanted a sentimental theme song with just the right lyrics that obliquely capture the spirit of human exploration. I feel the song nails it." Braga has also explained that, after all of the orchestral themes from past Trek, he wanted to do something different for Enterprise to give the show its own identity. The montage of the history of human invention is truly inspiring and really tells what the show is supposed to be about, humanity's first steps into our galaxy, but the song choice is a source for endless debate. Number 8. The push for the temporal Cold War. The temporal Cold War storyline from Enterprise portrayed a conflict between various factions from the future visiting the past to change history in their favour. A special features for the release of Enterprise's first season included a segment called Star Trek Time Travel, Temporal Cold Wars and Beyond, in which Brannon Braga explained that the Temporal Cold War was added because the studio wanted to make the show more futuristic, given that all of their 22nd century tech was outdated compared to all the previous Star Trek shows. While the Temporal Cold War is really compelling and beloved by many fans, the reasoning is a bit ridiculous. The whole point of making Enterprise a prequel was to tell the story of humanity's earliest treks into space. Fans loved seeing older versions of classic tech and the early interactions with the species we all know and love. By trying to make a prequel more futuristic than previous Trek shows, it was difficult for Enterprise to forge its own identity. Braga later stated in the special features that the Temporal Cold War was a nifty idea, but probably would have worked better as a separate show. Number 7. Trip's old name and Connor Trinneer's close call. Interestingly, Charles Trip Tucker III was originally named Spike while the show was in early production. His name was changed because there was already a character named Spike on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. The description for Spike in the series Bible read, Chief Engineer, early 30s, a southerner who enjoys using his country persona to disarm people. He has an offbeat, often sarcastic sense of humour. In a special feature for the first season titled Launching Enterprise, Connor Trinneer explained that he got the call from Rick Berman to inform him of the name change. He was worried that he was going to lose the role on the show because he recently took a couple of bottles of liquor home from a party on the lot. He was absolutely relieved to hear the news because he was sure he was going to be fired for ripping off some booze. Number 6. Braga apologised for the finale. In the second season Blu-ray special feature, Star Trek Enterprise, In Conversation, The First Crew, Brannon Braga apologised to the cast of Enterprise for the last episode, These Are the Voyages. Nearly everyone involved in the finale has expressed regrets about how the series ended. Connor Trinneer was especially upset with his character's unceremonious death. Braga also explained that the goal with the finale was to create a love letter to all of Trek, a move that he now believes was a narcissistic move on his and Rick Berman's part. The decision to focus on William Riker watching the NX-01 crew on the holodeck merely distracted from the real stars of the show and wasted time in an already highly rushed episode. The creation of the Federation was originally planned to be a long story arc, but with the coming cancellation, a lot of the teamwork between the Vulcans, Andorians, Tellarites and humans was skipped over, though we did get to see the beginnings of these relationships throughout the series. These Are the Voyages is definitely one of the most hated finales of any television show. Given how many members of the crew have spoken out against it, it probably would have been better for the series to end without trying to wrap everything up. At least that way their characters could have been revisited in future Trek. Number 5. Brannon Braga's favourite episode. Star Trek Enterprise, In Conversation, The First Crew, also included a part where Brannon Braga said that his favourite episode of the whole show was Dear Doctor. The episode was about Dr. Phlox and the Enterprise crew debating whether or not they should interfere in an alien society in order to cure a deadly disease spreading through their society. Eventually, this conflict led to Captain Archer considering the need for a prime directive to prevent Starfleet from interfering with pre-war cultures. Braga praised the episode for tackling an interesting and controversial challenge that only could have been dealt with on Enterprise. Linda Park then added that she appreciated episodes like Dear Doctor for creating metaphors about real-world issues using sci-fi. The episode Stigma was also praised by the cast shortly after for the same reason. Sci-fi allegories for real issues have existed in Trek since the original series, with episodes like Let That Be Your Last Battlefield. John Billingsley and others have said that particular episode was a bit too on the nose with its message, but other Trek, including Enterprise, has taken the concept of sci-fi metaphors to a whole new level. Number 4. The Borg Queen origin story. It's well known now that Enterprise was cancelled right when it was beginning to find its own identity. It's truly a shame that we never got to see what the writers had planned for Season 5, especially one particular potential storyline. In a 2007 interview with Trek Movie, Judith and Garland Reese-Stevens pitched a story that would show the creation of the Borg Queen in Season 5. The story would be a continuation of the episode Regeneration, in which the time-travelling Borg from Star Trek First Contact were rediscovered in Earth's Arctic ice and escaped by assimilating a crew of researchers. Judith and Garland planned to have Alice Krige return to play a Starfleet medical technician who would come into contact with the Borg. Krige previously played the Borg Queen in First Contact, and the story would show how she came to become the voice of the collective. The storyline would raise so many questions and grandfather paradoxes, it's hard to fathom. It's also complicated by the fact that the Borg Queen said she was a member of Species 125 in the Voyager episode Dark Frontier, and humans are designated Species 5618 by the Borg. Number 3. Why the Romulans didn't attack Earth. In the second season finale, The Expanse, the Xindi attacked Earth, which began a brilliant season-long story arc that profoundly related to the 9/11 terrorist attacks that happened only 2 years before the episode aired. Interestingly, before we knew more details about the invaders, some fans initially speculated that the Romulans were behind the attack. In issue 145 of the magazine Star Trek Communicator, Brannon Braga explained that using the Romulans as villains for a season-long story arc would have been a big mistake because they would have become old hat. This is strange to hear, considering that Earth's war with the Romulans was one of the defining parts of this era of Trek history. While it would have been nice to see more of humanity's first interactions with the Romulans, the episode Minefield at least gave us a good idea of what the writers had planned for the cancelled seasons. Number 2. Did the creators not want to make Enterprise? Another idea for why the show suffered poor viewership was franchise fatigue. This is the idea that there were simply too many Star Trek properties being released at one time. Rick Berman and Brannon Braga have been criticised for their belief that Star Trek needed some time before returning to TV, but perhaps they were right. Star Trek went through a huge break from television after Enterprise until 2017 with the release of Discovery, and since then we've had 5 other new shows, many of which have been incredibly successful. Maybe it was that long break that allowed Star Trek to become highly demanded again. We're not ready yet for another decade-long dark age of yearning for a new Trek show, but franchise fatigue is real, and it's important to take the franchise in multiple directions to avoid that fatigue from setting in. Modern Trek has enough variety to keep things fresh. Number 1. The NX-01 refit design. If there's one thing to learn from this list, it's that missing out on Enterprise's 5th season was truly a tragedy. One huge change we would have gotten was a beautiful refit of the NX-01 Enterprise, made by the brilliant fictional starship designer Doug Drexler. Drexler revealed that the design on his blog, Drex Files, by simply adding another hull segment and extending the warp nacelle pylons below the saucer, Drexler was able to turn the NX-01 into a realistic template for the original series Constitution class. You can clearly see how Starfleet engineers could evolve from the flat NX-01 to a new, bulkier design that included more space. This design would then go on to inspire the creation of Constitution-class vessels in the 23rd century. This simple change was a highlight of Star Trek Enterprise's ability to show the progression of humanity, and thanks to Star Trek Picard's second and third seasons, the inclusion of the Eaglemoss model of this ship, and including this ship at the Fleet Museum, this refit is finally canon. Thank you so much to everyone for watching along. You are awesome and you are wonderful. Thank you so much to Marcia Fry, who originally wrote this article. You will catch them over on the website. Make sure you check that out. You are wonderful. You are awesome. Make sure that you look after yourselves until the next time I'm talking to you. Make sure that you live long and prosper. You're great. Thanks.